Welcome, Alex. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Hey, Simon. Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
I'm looking forward to discussing this, a very good neglected topic.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Let's start with the new indie devs. So if we put ourselves in the shoes of someone brand new to being an indie and wanting to get their game or prototype in front of publishers, where would you start?
It's a good question, and I'm guessing it's quite an intimidating thing to sort of get your head around once you're there with your game and you need to get it out there. So, I mean, there's obviously different ways. There's physical and digital ways. I mean, the best starting point, I would say, is events. You know, it's nothing better than interacting with people face to face and, you know, building a rapport. And it's pretty easy to find an event either on your doorstep or hopefully just a train journey away. I mean, the games industry in the B2B sector love an event. There's always a conference somewhere or a meetup group somewhere. So it's always worth just doing a bit of research, just seeing where your peers are going, what events they think are really good for indies. And yeah, so events is a good shout to start off with. It's always worth building your base on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people, again, feel it might be too corporate, but it's still a business channel at the end of the day. It's obviously a much more business relationship you're going to build on LinkedIn as opposed to Facebook or Twitter. So, you know, make sure your profile is up to date. Make sure you've got some really good info when people start stalking you on LinkedIn. Join groups on LinkedIn, and again, you should start getting, you know, your ear to the ground, being part of that conversation about where indies are going or what events are good or what channels are good to access. Chat groups are obviously really good as well, so, you know, maybe just seek out some Discord channels. I know that Business of Indie Games have got a really good one that's very proactive. It's good to get on a Discord channel that's alive. You know, I've been on a few where it's pretty dormant. So it's, you know, it's a credit to Simon and Nicola that they've got one that's actually alive and people are chatting and engaging and getting something out of it. So search Discord groups, Slack groups, you know, something where there's just a constant good conversation going. And then the last thing, which a lot of people I think forget about, is your existing network. It's always worth reaching out to friends, family, or previous lecturers or bosses who have got, you know, a connection to the games industry or may introduce you to someone. And it's always worth going back to that, because that's them waiting for you to access whenever you need. You know, send a friend a text, or if you see someone that you used to work with is moving back into your area, your neck of the woods, just ping them on LinkedIn and just say, hey, it's great, you're back. There's an amazing new bar that's just opened up. Let's go for a chat. And just, you know, keep your existing network alive as well. It's not always about having to find new leads. There's a lot of people out there who you already know right under your nose. So I think those are the 5 key areas you should target.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a really great summary, actually. Also, I've found that it's good to find people that are interested in my genre. You know, so if I'm making a particular type of game, to find Facebook groups or other groups that are interested in that particular genre and join in the discussion there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it also, you know, when you've got your game and you want to start doing more research around streamers and people like that, you know, there's a really good website called Twitch Metrics, which will find streamers or influencers by genre. So, you know, that's one website you should probably bookmark for when you're ready as well.
Oh, that's a real gem. Thank you. Twitch Metrics, that's great. And
yeah, Twitch Metrics, have a look at that one. Yeah,
great. We'll put the link in the channel here.
Cool.
So I mean, what if you're shy? You know, what if you're a great developer and you're a great coder, for example. You may even have a great game, but you're not great at putting yourself forward or pitching yourself. What advice can you give to these people? You're a master of being out in the world with people.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably two things. You could ask someone to do it for you. You know, you could approach someone like myself or a person out there who's really well connected and is more than happy to, you know, do the hand holding physically at an event for you. I mean, you know, that's not uncommon, especially in the games industry. We all love to help each other and we're always willing to share. So yeah, if you're really struggling and you do have, actual issues about, walking into a large room that's buzzing full of people all talking and drinking, then yeah, maybe figure out a different way that works for you, or yeah, ask someone, I guess. But if you are about to walk into a conference, and you want to give it a go, there's a lot of things that you can just do straight away that are fairly straightforward for you to help break things down. Set yourself a goal. I'm going to meet 3 new people in this room. So don't think that you're going to have to work the room, get rid of all your business cards and spend 2 hours there. Just go, right, I want to meet 3 new people. There's a really nice thing that a lot of people at conferences are now doing called the Pac-Man deal, where just basically you stand in a circle but you leave a gap. So if you see people standing in a circle but there's one space, go and fill that space, because that's what it's there for. So that's a really nice thing that you can look out for. Obvious signs: if someone's on their phone, they're obviously not approachable, so just discount these people straight away. Find perhaps another person on their own, just one person or 2 people on their own, and talk to them. Don't enter a large group unless they've got the Pac-Man set up, because you're just going to walk into a clique, and that's going to make things hard. And just kind of take a step back and just think, right, okay, everyone's here pretty much doing the same thing, and just use the free information and location. If you're at a conference in Seattle for game developers, pretty much everyone is going to be a game developer, and they may or may not be from Seattle. So use that information. So, are you a game developer? Are you from Seattle? Is it, or are you a visitor? So try and start off with some really easy questions. Don't feel like you've just got to go in and then get your pitch ready, because what tends to happen is you're not going to build a rapport with someone until after at least the first 8 or 9 conversations. So this is just laying the foundations to meet with someone. But I know it's intimidating. I know it can be hard. And sometimes you have to, what I call, assume the burden. And by that, I mean, you've got to be the host. You've got to be the person to instigate it. Assume it's your party. So just try to keep the conversation going. And if it, after a few key questions, it just isn't going anywhere, then just say, look, I'm dying for a coffee. I've just got to go. So I'll catch you. I'll see you later. They won't be offended, but you obviously want to make sure that you meet some interesting and hopefully helpful people. So those are my sort of basics for networking in a room. But if it's really hard, then you've just got to use what's available, and that's just engaging with people over social media or LinkedIn, or just trying to put something compelling in an email that hopefully people are going to respond. I mean, if it's unsolicited, if it's cold calling, it's obviously you're at a bit of a disadvantage, and that's where someone introducing you would probably come in handy.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really great summary, and some good tactics as well to use, in those types of situations. Also, for me, I've found that the games business, people stick around in the games business because it's so much fun. So when you meet people at these events, you think, oh, I'm just meeting this person for the first time. And then you end up knowing them for 10 or 20 years,
You do. Yeah. Yeah.
You end up in like different positions at different companies and stuff. It's quite amazing.
It is. There's very few people that sort of leave the games industry and don't come back. I mean, yeah, I'm still bumping into the same people that I first met in 2010. So yeah, it's very true. And I think that's what makes it slightly more easier to handle, the fact that you do end up seeing quite a lot of familiar faces. Yeah. And
it can be really worthwhile because, like, for an example, the game that we're doing at the moment, the agent that is negotiating our commercial deal is actually someone I met 20 years ago. And although we weren't able to do anything then, now's the right time,
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's plugging into your existing network and your contacts and just checking in, just making sure that there's, even if it's just in passing or some sort of dialogue going, that you're hopefully going to help each other out at some point, because it's going to be quicker and easier if it's someone you already know.
Yeah, thank you. And can you tell us some of the results that you've had through networking? I mean, what can new indies expect from results wise, from networking?
Well, I think it's having an outlook that's not all about yourself, and just like, if you tell yourself all I want to do is pitch my game, then you're probably not going to get very far, because a lot of things in all industries or in business generally is reciprocal. So, my success stories tend to come out of the fact that I've helped someone, and they've remembered that, and they've just helped me, or they've come to me first with something. So, I think if you have that in your head when you're networking, or when you're about to get into a meeting, and if it's not just about pitching a game, just think to yourself, well, how can I help? How can I help you? Because they might be struggling with something, or they might need help with something. And that's how you tend to build your network, because you've helped each other out with something. It's not about a business transaction, that comes later. And that's going to be with them and their colleagues, and a different kind of discussion. The sort of success I get is when I've just basically done someone a favor. And I've not done, I've not gone all mafia on them, and it's not like, you now owe me. it's just the fact that they've appreciated it and they've remembered it. And I think there's a lot to be said for just the likability factor as well. If you're coming across as quite a nice and approachable person, then people tend to think of you again, or if they see you at an event, they go, oh, I need to ask Alex that thing, because he probably knows the right person for that. So I think if you can build yourself a network of people who have all got slightly different talents, and all have something different to offer, you can all help each other out. And then that circle just tends to, have rings around it about they can help each other out, and then they can help those other people out. So you tend to build this nice sort of guild style, where in the end you won't have to network the room, because everyone knows everyone, and you're kind of helping each other out.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, even the business of making and selling games is helping someone out. A game developer needs a publisher. The publisher needs to have games out on the shelf, to a particular time scale. So if you can help with that problem, and you can do that well, then it really does serve everyone.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so I think that's what works the best.
Absolutely, thank you. It's really clear. And so outside of networking, how do you recommend communicating with potential publishers, investors, and in the game dev community as a whole?
Well, I think there's obviously a lot of more curated events out there, where the actual structure is based on you as a developer pitching your game to an investor or publisher, and there's plenty of those out there that you can access. I mean, the Big Indie Pitch is one of them, especially good for mobile games, and Games Investment Summit is another one, which is slightly more generic and takes place during EGX. So if you're looking for something more specific, where all you want to do is pitch your game, those kind of physical events do exist. Obviously, Business of Indie Games is a really good way to start as well. Outside of that, again, it's just trying to build your network through, something like LinkedIn, for instance, where, if you want to send a connection request to certain publishers who would be perfect for your game, that's probably something you can make a start with. But it's just getting the wording right in that invite request, and not being too over the top sales pitchy once that connection accepts your LinkedIn request. I think it's quite hard in this day and age to find the right person in the right channel, and it does bizarrely go back to the previous questions, where it might be worth asking someone to help make that referral, or help make that introduction, because at the end of the day, it's not what sometimes it is who you know. So I can appreciate how hard it must be for indies if they are based somewhere where it's not London, for instance, and they are slightly out, off the beaten track, but they don't really know where to go and who to interact with. I think you're just going to have to find your nearest regional meetup group and just start from there, and just hopefully that gets you to the right kind of people that you want to meet.
Yeah, absolutely. I've often found trips to America very helpful as well, because it's the heartbeat of the mainstream games industry. And although I might not do any actual business at E3 or at some of the other conferences, but once again, I widen my network and I meet some of the bigger players there. And also I get to see some of the bigger titles, and so, which is always, of course, inspiring. So if I am stuck as an indie with my head down trying to get my game done, I'm wondering if it's ever going to work or ever going to sell. Sometimes to go out there and actually see what's going on, there's an incredible array of stuff getting made and somebody's paying for it. So it's always inspiring to see that, you know, it is possible.
Yeah. I think, you know, if you're an indie and you do have the budget, it's always worth trying to head out to the more established, bigger conferences such as E3 and GDC and Gamescom, so you can get a feel for it and a taste for it. And, you know, most publishers and decision makers tend to be at the big ones as well. But if you're not there yet, then, you know, you need to start with what you've got, use the tools you have, and just engage with them over Twitter and just follow their accounts and see if there's a way or a method where they're going to respond to you. You know, obviously don't pester them, but there's definitely ways you can start building some sort of rapport with people just through your phone, just through sort of social media and stuff as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a good point. Digital does level the playing field in terms of, like, if you can't afford to go to the conference, then at least you can reach people still and communicate.
Yeah, and it's, you know, most conferences have a website which will list all the exhibitors as well. So if there's someone you really wanted to meet at some expo but just couldn't make it out to Barcelona, for instance, then yeah, there's normally a way you can find that person over LinkedIn or other ways as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. And of course, nothing will get you in front of a publisher or say something about you than your product, your game.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think a publisher needs to see these days before they will commit? I mean, in the old days, we could get a game on the back of a 2-page document, but those days seem to have long gone.
Yeah, I think it feels like there's a lot more risk on both sides these days, isn't there? You know, there's so many more games being made, and there's so many more publishers out there that are looking for the next big hit, or a game that they actually like themselves, that they just want to see, you know, shipped and out there. You know, it's for publishers, I guess they just need to see something that ticks all the boxes. So for you as an indie, you've got to make sure that you are pitching to the right publisher in the first place. But you're concise enough and you're honest enough, but you're also fairly adaptive as well. So, you know, it's just making sure that you're not going to, you know, interfere with the vision you have of what this game should be, but you need to understand that the publisher might have a few caveats or a few things that might need changing, and you need to be open-minded about that, or just immediately go back to them and say, I don't think that's going to work. Let's just park it. So I think, you know, staying true to your own values is good. You know, I know it's a struggle. I know it's hard trying to get a game published, but don't just be so desperate that you just go for it with the first person who shows a sign of interest. Because, you know, the next person might have been, you know, you might click like that, and it might have just been an amazing conversation or meeting. So, but yeah, with publishers, I think, you know, they obviously want to find the right game for their platform, and they're obviously beholden to a lot more logistical issues beyond the game. You know, the fact that, you know, they've got the marketing, the PR and the merchandising and everything around the release of that game to make it work. You know, they've got that secret sauce to make it happen, but it's only going to be with a game they really love, you know. So again, I think it's not just down to luck, but I think it is about finding that perfect relationship between the developer and the publisher, and not just, you know, the moment they go, well, we've got the budget for that, let's do it. You know, that you might just be one of a list, you know, that hits their target for the year or something. So it's hard to know what publishers really are looking for outside of just the next biggest sort of release, because there's so many different types of publishers out there now who, you know, there's others, there's those that focus on a more narrative type of game, or a game that has a message to it, you know, depression, for instance. So I think, you know, it's just finding the right one for you that fits. And I'm sure most indies have got a wish list of who they want to pitch to first, who their perfect ideal publisher would be. But once that list has been exhausted, then it's trying to find one that's either right for the genre or right for the platform, but also within budgets as well.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. And I mean, do you feel like you need at least a prototype these days to get somebody interested?
I think so. Yeah, from being part of the big indie pitch events where you've only got 3 minutes to pitch your game, because it's kind of like a speed dating style setup. The most important thing is just to get that game into their hands. Just literally get them in front of them and get them to start playing it. And while they're playing it, that's when you can start describing it. If I was to be pitching a game with you and I'm telling you all about me, you've not even seen my game yet. You might just think, well, this is all a really great story, Alex, but I just want to see your game. That's what they want to see at the end of the day. So I think that's the main thing. Just get that game in front of them, get them to start playing it straight away and see what the initial reaction is. And then you can start talking to them as they play it. They'll come back with questions afterwards. They'll have loads of questions. So just be concise and just, get that game in front of them, get them to play it, show it to them.
Yeah, thank you. Great. And so while you're making your game, as a new indie, you've still got to survive, still got to pay the bills, still got to pay the team. And to sort of do this, there are a number of different strategies that you can apply. What are some simple studio strategies that newbies or new developers can come up with, can work with?
Yeah, well, I think, it's important to join certain groups just to build those resources. Again, if it's a Slack group or a Discord group or even a LinkedIn group, just get in with some like-minded people who are at the same stage as you are and share what's worked, what hasn't worked, and, figure out, if there's ways you can save yourself some, proper hassle. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. So you might as well just get real with yourself and be prepared for that. And there's other ways, join trade associations, join industry bodies that will hopefully help members and, advise them and introduce you to people who are also members from the legal side of the business or from licensing or accounts. There's some really good resources out there and a couple of really good trade associations that will help you if you ask them. Just make sure you're a proactive member and ask for that help. And again, events goes back to events, just attend events and engage with people. So that those would be the best things I would say, once you're sort of up and running, but you just want to keep things going smoothly. You can ask for help. I would say that's a really key part. Part of a 3-point plan for startups. Ask for help. Make sure you're in with a good team. Find a really good partner. Don't think you've got to do it alone. Get a partner in crime. And make sure that they share the same values as you, but maybe they're slightly different. You might be the introvert and they might be the extrovert presentation guy, or, good cop, bad cop. Just find a dynamic that fits. But be creative, give yourself some time, when you're not traveling, when you're not doing pitch decks, or when you're not, having to network a room, just give yourself some time in the week to just be creative and just, remember what you're doing, what you're there for. You're there to make a game, and whatever your specialism is, just, give yourself that time. Friday afternoon or Thursday morning or Tuesday lunch, it's my time to be creative and not forget that, this is what I'm actually supposed to be doing. This is the real thing, and think outside of the box as well. Be disruptive. From being in a punk band 20 odd years ago, I sort of have an outlook which is kind of, so what? If all these guys do it this way, that's fine, but I'm going to try it this way because I don't care. I'm going to give it a go. So what? So, always think outside the box and just be disruptive about things, I would say.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I mean, in terms of asking for help, one of the things that we did to survive is that while we were selling our original title, we did some work for hire, smaller pieces, smaller games for publishers, which helped build our technology, helped build our cash position, while we went around and did the business development work, which can take time. we'd spent up to a year trying to get a game signed.
Yeah, I think the work for hire side is obviously a great strategy. It's, works for a lot of studios who are working on their own project, but obviously need to keep the lights on in some way. So, and that in itself is a whole, another PR marketing exercise where you need to build your brand as a studio alongside the brand that you're trying to build for this game. So it can be quite hard to juggle those. And, there's obviously quite a few work for hire studios out there. So you need to sort of find that niche and figure out what your USP is, what sets you apart from the others, and if you're not sure, just sit down and do a SWOT analysis, just get a nice whiteboard out and just get everyone in the room or go to a pub or whatever and just go, right, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are the opportunities and what are the threats to us as XYZ work for hire studio? Try and figure out where that leaves you, and go from there.
Alex, I think you're absolutely spot on there. I mean, that's the way. Our niche was always, we did children's titles, so we did like Peppa Pig or Doctor Who or Scooby-Doo, stuff like that. And then, once we'd done one or two, we became known for that. They're also small. You can get them done within 1 year. They're on popular platforms like the Nintendo and Wii and DS. We did a lot of stuff on there. And so that allowed us then, they were small enough that it freed up the space that we could manage those and still focus on, our dreams of making our own original titles.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you've nailed it. It's you found that niche, and just after one or two projects under your belt, it was enough to snowball to get more people to go, oh, well, if you want to have this kind of game made, you want to go to these guys, and it's you just sort of built your own reputation there, which is amazing. So it's just all down to sort of being fairly tenacious and just finding something that will play to your strengths and that you can deliver, because the last thing you want to do is say yes to something that you're going to struggle with, and you lose that business, or you do that business but it's not well received, and then you're kind of tarnished a little bit. So you need to, again, it's having the strength to turn business away as well. Sometimes I would say you've got to be brave enough to go, you know what, I don't think this is a good fit for us. I don't think we're going to be able to deliver what you want, because they'll respect that. And again, you might be on bread and water for a bit longer, but at least you've not shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, because you can sort of trample on your own dreams as well, because if you're so busy trying to satisfy a customer that you can't, you're spread too thinly, and then you can't put the effort into your own project as well. So you don't get a great project for your customer, and you don't get a great project for your original title either, because you spread yourself too thin and taken on too much.
Exactly. Yeah. In that situation, you really just got to try and keep it simple. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Well, I think that's a really good sort of foundation for indies starting out who want to get to know people in the mainstream of the business. And you said tenacity, and absolutely, I think that's the number one quality, or as I think of it, as perseverance.
Yeah.
Because it is a friendly industry, and if you stick in long enough and you make some good stuff, you will get it out there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's very few people I've met where we haven't sort of hit it off in some way, or it's been a fairly awkward conversation, or it's just ended in something quite blunt or rude. That I've never really had a conversation or a relationship with anyone like that where it's been quite sour. So I think most people, I think because we're all quite creative types, and the industry itself is fairly young, so I think we've got quite a progressive outlook, and we've got that kind of outlook where it's nowhere near that the corporate side of things. It's all shady, and it's all about suits making the decisions. Everything's just on a sort of a friendly kind of vibe from the get-go, I'd say.
Yeah, great, thanks. Before we get into the the sort of more established studios.
Mm-hmm.
What are you up to at the moment? What can people, if they want to get in touch with you, what are you looking for?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously I've been doing freelance business development for about 4 years now, and I actually managed to start my own limited company in November last year called Analog Limited. Called it Analog because I run a fanzine as well, which is kind of a scrappy little print fanzine written by game devs for game devs, and most of the content is from a personal a sort of a personal part where it's like, you know, I suffered with this game, or I tried to work on that game, or stuff like that. But yeah, so I have a couple of clients at the moment. One of them is MCV, which is a print magazine for the games development and publishing community, and I do business development for those guys. Another client is a company called Commerce Centric, and they offer digital marketing agency solutions. So anything ranging from SEO to social media management to media buying. Commerce Centric are those guys.
Does that include crowdfunding
so in between
now as well?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they'll be able to put their hand to that. They've just signed off an agreement with WeChat as well. So if you want to put your games to the Chinese market, then they've got a really good strategy and easy kind of methodology behind that as well. But yeah, I mean, I have a bit of an ebb and flow with certain clients because they'll ask me to work on their event and just sort of pitch for sponsorship. So once that event's finished, it's on to the next project, or I'm sort of available for more work. But mostly my biz dev is on the sales side. So I'm helping companies, you know, get their revenue up by getting new business, or as I say, you know, an event needs to make a bit of money or pay for itself with sponsorship. So that's something I'll be helping out with as well. But yeah, obviously, you know, the nice personal creative side is the fanzine and Game Dev Heroes. So I'm a busy man at the moment, actually, but it's going well.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. You certainly did a great job for us. Do you want to say anything about Game Dev Heroes at all?
Yeah. So we launched Game Dev Heroes last year during the Develop Brighton conference, and it was really a chance for me to put out an initiative that helps recognise unsung talent in the games industry. You know, we've got a nice you know, calendar of award ceremonies that happen, but the awards that are given out are normally for a game or a successful company. It's never for individuals, really, unless you're a legend. So I wanted us to put together an event that was a People's Awards where the categories would be actually disciplines. So we have a Game Dev Hero for audio and a Game Dev Hero for QA and marketing and writing. So we just went small last year in a little pub in Brighton, and like over 100 people showed up, and it was a really great event, and I think it resonated a lot with people in games development, where if you work in QA or if you work in programming, you know, but you're really good and you're actually a really nice person as well, you know, it'd be nice if you got that kind of recognition. So that's what Game Dev Heroes is all about, just like raising awareness for unsung talent in the games industry. And we did it again this year in a venue that was twice the size, and I'll show you some links to the video we made. And yeah, it was just a really successful event, and we're hoping just to sort of not grow it too much that it becomes this huge thing, but we just want to make it, you know, something that people really value. And you know, it's a really good way of recognizing your peers and skilled people that you work with who wouldn't normally get that kind of spotlight shone on them, I suppose.
Oh, it sounds lovely. Really great. And how do people get in touch with you about that?
Well, you can go to the website, www.gamedevheroes.co, or just email me, alex@gamedevheroes.co. We probably won't be back with the next event until July 2020. But we are looking at ways to sort of keep the momentum going with perhaps an event between now and then, or just a few bits and pieces. So if you are interested and you want to know more about it, yeah, just drop me a line and I'll tell you what we're up to.
Thank you. Fabulous. Let's dive in for established indie developers then.
Okay.
What different scenarios and situations do a bigger studio find themselves in right now in terms of business development?
Yeah, well, see, business development can be quite a woolly thing. As I mentioned, my business development focuses more on the sales side of things, but there'll be business development people out there who don't sell a thing. Their role is more on the strategic partnerships front, or they're actually doing developer outreach, because they've got a publishing arm, So sometimes it can mean different things. And from my perspective, it's just a more polite way of saying it's not sales. But yeah, I suppose if you're more established and slightly bigger, then yeah, I mean, if you're a big work for hire facility with a lot of successful projects and games under your belt, then the business development cycle there is going to be a lot more networking, a lot more event attendance, and a lot more pitching to certain companies to get them to use you for the next project they're working on. So I guess those are the different scenarios and situations. It's just sort of a slightly amplified version where there's more outreach involved, and there's more I wouldn't say there's more risk, but there's definitely more pressure on business development people to keep that company going if they've grown to quite a big established size.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly felt that pressure myself. At one point it cost $250,000 a month to run the studio, and so that means your business development pipeline has to be spot on, because you can't have any downtime in between projects. And also, if a milestone, say we miss one milestone, we might not have, 50 grand might be then missing from the budget that you need. Or a publisher may say, hey, we don't have the money, we're going to pay you next month instead. Once again, you're in the same situation. So it's vital to have a good sales pipeline and business development pipeline, nurturing those relationships. Once you get out of the sort of family size studio.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more at stake, and it's something that you can just, compared to a lot of other things, just working on MCV, all the advertising in the magazine and on the website pays salaries for the editorial team and the production team. So, if there's a month where no one really wants to advertise, or there's just not enough money coming in, then it becomes a problem. If the money coming in is not doesn't compensate the money going out, then yeah, that's when people start to panic. And it's good now, I suppose, in this day and age that we have, CRM tools, that if you're not the most efficient person with your diary and your, little black book inside your brain, you've got something like Salesforce or Pipedrive to, remind you that you've got to check in with Josh, or you've got to give Lisa a call, or you've got to meet this person at this event, So I think, it's key that you have a sort of well-oiled sales pipeline, that you don't end up finding yourself in a fallow month and the MD's calling you in saying it's not been great, has it? What the hell's what are you up to? What's going on? What prospects are you talking to? Where are we going to get our next sort of project sign off from? So it's I mean, I always think business development's a bit like spinning plates. You've always got to just make sure that no plate ever falls. But yeah, as I say, it's good that there's a lot of tools out there that can help you, manage it and forecast it and be on top of things.
What tools do you recommend to make sure that you're really organised in that way?
I think it sort of depends on the kind of person you are. Obviously, you can do a lot with just a Google sheet if you want, as long as you've got, really well labelled columns and it's easily updated and it's something fairly transparent you can share with everyone else. But if you want something more sophisticated, Salesforce are still pretty much the leader in terms of CRM tools. It's not cheap, but they've got a lot of great plugins and a lot of great ways that can help you just, not lose track of where you are and what you're up to. And when you log in on Monday morning, there'll be a nice to-do list waiting for you with notes. And it's obviously good for colleagues, or should you ever leave the company, you've got some handover notes right there. So yeah, Salesforce is good. I've used Pipedrive mainly because it's a really good affordable CRM tool. And also you can download the app for it as well, and it will sync with your contacts. So I think the problem with certain CRM tools is there's a lot of data entry and a lot of admin that gets done, and you get very bored and very annoyed quickly, where you just want to be out there selling or biz deving, but in actual fact you're just typing in lots of fields. So it's good to find one that's going to be fairly quick in importing and exporting your database in a way that's clear and concise, and you can just get on with the job.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go sort of more into the detail of that, the organisation, before you start, what's the best way of evaluating the competitive landscape and using it to strengthen your unique selling points as a studio?
Yeah, well, I think you could obviously go back to using a SWOT analysis just to see, what's out there, who's the closest kind of competitor to your company in terms of size and scope. It's always worth checking in with certain people who are fairly well connected and maybe hear of certain projects before other people do. So I think you need to be fairly shrewd and just sort of it's a tricky one, really. I mean, it's hard to sort of evaluate the landscape sometimes if you're not attending enough events or reading enough sort of blog posts and news articles that shed some light on where things might be going. I mean, the only good thing with us is that we tend to go through these cycles when a whole bunch of next generation platforms come out, or where there's a like the mental sort of gold rush we had with smartphones and mobile games. So I think it's making sure that you're prepared for the next wave as well, and making sure you're speaking to the right people in those fields. Because I think what tended to happen 2 or 3 years ago with immersive technology, with XR and VR, everyone wanted to get on that bandwagon. Everyone wanted to make a VR game because they might have missed out when mobile broke out, and they don't want to miss out again. But obviously you've got to bet on the right horse, because immersive tech isn't really there yet. It's not in everyone's hands like a mobile phone was. So I think it's just being tenacious and shrewd enough to sort of jump in behind the right kind of projects and keep an ear to the ground and make sure that you don't miss a trick. I mean, that's basically what business development's all about. It's just keeping in touch with people and checking in. Yes,
I mean, certainly when it comes to the publishers, they will tell you straight what they want and what they're looking for at the moment, but sometimes it is more difficult to pick the wider trends.
Yeah, and again, that's just sort of reading the room, isn't it? And just sort of being at conferences or sitting in on talks where you've got some fairly clever, experienced people talking about what might be down the road.
Yeah,
and just making sure that you're ready to have that conversation when you need it.
Yes, because it's like by the time you find out that Battle Royale is the flavour of the month, it's too late.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, you've kind of got to be a little bit of a step ahead of the game, and it kind of goes back to that disruptive thinking where if you're going to just do something crazy and outside of the box, it might be what everyone's waiting for. It might be the next big thing. So, it's sometimes you might want to think about being that person in charge of the next wave rather than just jumping on board with it.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. It is talking to people once again is the secret, and listening to people who are in the know, and listening to some of the best designers and the best game makers, I think.
Yeah, and it's obviously lead generation is good and useful and stuff, but it tends to be a one-sided thing where you're just building up a nice list of companies you would love to work with. But I can just be scrolling through LinkedIn one day and see a few people that I've been connected to for a long time post something quite intriguing, and I'll follow up on that. That's all it takes. You just, I don't want to say the luck word, but sometimes it is just being in the right place at the right time. You could just be queuing up for a coffee at GDC and you'll end up chatting to the guy behind you, and they just so happen to be someone really, really useful or influential, and you just hit it off, and that's justified your whole trip. So sometimes these things can come out of nowhere. It's just making sure that you're kind of prepared for it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, make friends with everyone as well, because you don't know, like the person, they may have an ordinary job now and then they end up head of a publisher in 3 years' time,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what I've found, since being in the industry in 2010, there are people who I would talking to at just sort of, mid manager level who are now CEOs or founders. And and it's the old adage as well, people you meet on the way up, you're probably going to meet on the way down, which is a more important thing to make sure that you stay friendly.
Absolutely. And so we've got the lead generation part and the CRM tools. How do you put it all together in a system? Are there categories and then a process for following up?
Yeah, I think, say for instance, you were at an event and, you met with quite a few different individuals and you collected their business cards. The next stage is the sort of, the data entry. So it's, just inputting everything based on their business card. And then obviously the notes from the meeting, what you wrote down or what you can remember you spoke about. It wouldn't hurt to write the kind of meeting you had. Was it a sort of off the cuff thing where you just, were networking, or was it an actual scheduled meeting because you both wanted to meet each other? And then you figure out, you sort of do unless they say, look, don't contact me until next month, at least when you should contact them. But it's always that thing about, when you've sort of got a girl or a boy's phone number, it's like, well, how soon after should I call them? I don't want to scare them off, but I don't want to look too keen. So it's almost like you kind of have to gauge and sort of give yourself an educated guess on when you should follow up. Obviously if there's a sense of urgency and there's some sort of time sensitivity around what you're talking about, then obviously the week after the conference is perfect. But if you feel it's one that can be a more relaxed thing where you just want to follow up once you've got everything you want to say in an email, do it that way. But yeah, I think just do the due diligence, have the little pile of business cards and just go through each one and follow them on Twitter, add them on LinkedIn, get everything connected just so they're there and it's done and dusted. And then compose the follow-up emails individually. Don't do any sort of group emails saying, hey, it was great to meet you all. Remember certain things, that it might have been their kid's birthday, or they might have just gotten over a really bad cold, or they might have been seriously hungover or something. Just try and add in that thing that helps that rapport build a bit better, that you remember from the meeting. Don't be too clinical or sort of basic in the email, the follow-up email. That's what I always try and do anyway, and try and come up with a good subject line. The amount of emails I get that just say develop conference follow-up, try and add something different there. So even just the subject line saying Dave, was great to meet you, it might be enough for people just to open that email first.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really clever little insight, actually. I appreciate that.
There used to be a good little app called Card Munch, and I'm not entirely sure if it still exists, but what you could do is you could take a photo of the business card and it would scan it and connect you immediately with that person on LinkedIn. I don't know if it still exists, but there's some good apps out there. So if you've got a really bad memory, or you don't want to, you've run out of business cards or whatever, there's a nice few tools out there that will just help you connect with people a lot quicker as well.
Thank you. Fabulous. Sorry, I had it on mute.
That's all right.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, thank you for that. And just to, what about staying in touch with people across channels? Is there tools for that?
Yeah, I think a lot of CRM tools, you can just set up a to-do list. So with Pipedrive, for instance, you can it will almost remind you. It will have a little yellow triangle next to their name saying that you need to do something with this person, and you can schedule a meeting or a follow-up call or a follow-up email for a date, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months down the road. So if you do lose track of things, or you're not very good at scheduling your diary and things like that, then yeah, all these tools will have those kind of things ready for you to use.
Thank you. And then, I mean, many studios, business development is a result of a cash flow crisis and a knee-jerk reaction. We're obviously talking about systemizing things. So would you use like an events calendar for the business? So it would take into account all of the different conferences, different places to show your game off, plus a digital campaign.
Yeah, I think an events calendar is always really useful if you know that you need to be doing that kind of outreach. Again, it will be down to your own company strategy. What parts of the world should you be focusing more on? Do you need to go to more LATAM events, or are you going to be doing something more towards North America? There's obviously like key established conferences that almost are just essential, and that would probably be GDC and Gamescom, purely because most people go to them. They're big, and they tend to be ones where a lot of stuff tends to get done or decided in quick succession. And then sort of the next tier, if you will, are like the really good, successful regional events that, such as Nordic Game or Develop Brighton. They're once a year, they're established. And again, if you think that the Nordics or the UK is a target market for you, then these are the kind of events that you want to consider going to. But a new kind of event that's sprung up recently are these ones that combine sort of business with pleasure. So there's one called Reboot, which has been going for a few years now, which is in Dubrovnik, and they tend to take over a whole hotel, and it's obviously real sort of Game of Thrones sort of destination. So, but they've kind of been fairly unstructured with it as well. So they get some really amazing people to attend, but it's not like your typical sort of, okay, this is the morning itinerary. Meetings tend to happen off the cuff and stuff. So there are events out there that tap into a different mindset, and people who are scared of having to wear a lanyard or getting 10 meetings a day through the pitch and match system. Reboot tends to offer a kind of refreshing antidote to that as well. There's also another one called Feral Vector, which only recently happened up north in the UK about a month ago, and that was really good for indies, really laid back, and again, different vibe, a different type of event, not so structured. So I guess it depends, on the sort of the regions you're targeting, the kind of meetings you want to have, and how busy you actually want to be. Because if you wanted to, you could be at a conference probably every day of the year. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's really great stuff. And then once again, I suppose for the larger studios, do you have kind of three top tips maybe for developing their business?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a larger studio and you've obviously got a few big hits under your belt, and you just want to do more, I think if you're in that kind of situation where you're expanding, maybe look at having a couple more business development people to join the roster, rather than having one guy or gal having to do all the road trips and do all the events. I think it wouldn't hurt just to sort of flex a little bit of muscle on the PR and marketing side of things. If you are moving to a swanky location, or if you feel that there's a certain issue in the games development industry that needs looking at, a bit of activism doesn't hurt. So I think rather than just sort of pushing the business development, obviously that's what you need to do. You also need to focus on getting as many leads in as possible, and pitching your services. But people need to know about you as well, and people need to have a bit more of a personality around it before you just show up at an event and just go, right, we've got 30 minutes. I'm going to tell you about all the great games we've made, because they're probably going to know those games anyway. They're probably going to know you've got a really great team, because, you know, everyone's got a really great team, right? No one's going to say we've got an awful team. So you need to have something else in your back pocket. You need to have something that's going to appeal to them in a way where they think, well, actually, yeah, that's a really cool thing you guys are doing. So I think it's always worth just having an extra string to the bow, because, you know, most biz dev people are going to do a really good sales pitch, but they're all going to do a really good sales pitch. So you need something that, you know, obviously outside of that, you need to be able to adapt to that person very quickly as a business development person. You know, that one key skill you need to have is to learn that person's personality as quickly as possible. There's 4 character traits, and, you know, you tend to have it in a lot of sales seminars and webinars and podcasts, but there's 4 types of people that you basically come across. You've got, and they're color coded, but I won't tell you the colors because I've forgotten them. Basically, you have like your sort of, you know, the very strong character, kind of like the Alan Sugar type person, who's like, no nonsense, just tell it to me straight, no bullshit. Then you've got the sort of the numbers guy, the analytics person. So they're going to want to know numbers and figures and stats and forecasts. You've then got your touchy-feely person. So that's the kind of person who won't be able to make a decision for you on the spot. They're going to have to check with the rest of the team. They're going to have to get back to you, and I'm really not sure about it, but I'm just going to see what I can do. And then the 4th person is the sort of the dreamer. You know, paint me a picture. Give me some presentation here. You know, give me, you know, tell me the vision, but in a really kind of nice, amazing way. So if you learn that, you know, that person you're speaking to is one of those 4 areas, the conversation quickly takes another gear up, and you can, you know, you realize this person is mainly focused on numbers. So just work the numbers, use the stats, you know, use the metrics. So that's always a key thing to try and remember. But it's just being savvy at the end of the day, being a business development person. And if a company's doing well, you know, use that, you know, say we're doing really well, we're the best year ever. We just want to work with, you know, people we like now and work on games that we love. And we think you're one of them.
Fantastic. Thank you. Really great answer. Really great answers to everything actually today. I'm sure our audience are really going to appreciate this.
Cool.
So thank you so much for your time.
No worries. No problem.